All right, you guys all ready to start here? Great. So we're going to talk about Zerto specific to healthcare today. My name is Sasha Saeed. I actually invest in healthcare IT and services companies. My group is called Leering Transformation Partners. We're a growth equity firm. We invest $15 to $30 million check sizes. Is it squeaking a little bit? Yeah.
I hear something.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, all right. We'll just have to work with it then. So yeah, we invest capital in companies that are scaling and growing. My sister actually works at Zerto in the marketing department. And so I came across Zerto specifically, as you all probably know, that security is a big front of mind issue in healthcare today. So I am here moderating the panel with these two lovely gentlemen who I will let you introduce themselves.
Hi, my name's Todd Pappas. I'm with the Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic in Central Washington. I am the system engineer and a Zerto customer since 2012.
My name's Tom Kerrigan. I'm the manager of technical services for a Boston-based company here called Dotwell, and we're part of, we run IT services for two health centers in the Boston area that are part of the Boston Health Net. Been a Zerto customer for just about a year, coming up in August.
Great. I'm assuming that most of you are probably in healthcare, but can you just show hands who's in healthcare in this room? Okay, good. So one of the questions that we thought we'd start with is thinking about how security fits into the overall healthcare scheme. So can you guys tell me how your experience has been managing and supporting IT within healthcare?
Well, I'll start. You know, when I first came on, I've been in healthcare going on 7 years now. I've worked in just about every sector of IS. It's so broad, but you know, healthcare is the most challenging for us. We have high tech and HIPAA compliance that we have to conform to. We also, you know, like any other business, we have POS capabilities, POS. So we also have PCI compliance as well, which is a pretty big challenge. And you know, with disasters and hackers and threats, it's a continuous challenge to protect our patients' data, not only from disasters, but from you know, hackers and ransomware. And so it's been very, very challenging. And luckily, we've came across a good BCDR product such as Zerto.
And I guess you said that you had worked in healthcare for 6 years now. So tell the audience a little bit about your experience sort of outside of healthcare and then coming into healthcare and how the support is different.
Yeah, so I've worked in IS and education, finance, retail, high tech. I did a couple of contracting stints with Intel and the energy sector with Enron, PGE at the time. And, you know, the finance is probably the closest I could probably relate to as far as a heavy regulated sector of Sarbanes-Oxley. But, you know, you're dealing with people's money, and, you know, healthcare, you're dealing with people's lives. There's a pretty stark contrast there. So you're much more apt, you know, to really protect, you know, the patient's data, and you worry about patient safety too. So that's why BCDR was so important to us, to be able to recover and protect the patient's data.
Great. Tom?
So I've been in healthcare for coming up on 20 years now. My IT career goes back before they actually called it IT. But, you know, back to the early 80s when Apple and IBM came out with their first PC to what we have now. But it started in healthcare in '99 as part of the Y2K initiative. Had worked for a local hospital in South Shore and got them through the Y2K, got my step into healthcare, and I've pretty much been there ever since. You know, when we first started, when I first started in the late 90s, healthcare is always lagging behind all the other industries and technology. And we really couldn't figure out why, because we really made the most important decisions, you know, people's lives. But slowly and surely, it's sort of come on, and now healthcare sort of is one of the leaders in technology. So it's very difficult to support, at least it has been for me, to support IT in a healthcare environment, specifically where now I'm working for, you know, not-for-profit healthcare centers where we don't have a huge budget. You know, budget, you have to make do with what you have. So it's sort of difficult. You just can't throw money at it. And Zerto for us was a great find because it's not a lot of money. You get a lot of bang for the buck, and it really helped us out of some situations that I can go into in a little more detail a little bit.
So that's a good segue into how did you think about positioning Zerto? So was it because the sort of healthcare system and the desire to bring on new technologies had kind of progressed, and so you wanted to bring on a disaster recovery solution? Or was it that something happened and you reacted? Tell us a little bit about that.
So ours was definitely reactive. I started at Dotwell in August of 2015, and we're a 99% virtualized environment. We have one external web server, which I want to replace, but that's another story. You know, our disaster recovery strategy was always, we'll go back to backup. And, you know, we use Veeam, we're a big Veeam customer, we successfully have recovered, you know, file losses, not really a complete server loss, but, you know, in the event, we practiced it, but it was always, we'll restore it when we get to it. We were a victim twice before I got on board of ransomware, and 3 times after I got on board. But the second time, after the second time, it was just about timed perfectly with the VTUG conference that we went to in Maine last year up in Freeport. And Zerto was speaking there, and went to one of their classes, and myself and my CIO both went, and we thought, hey, you know, this would be great because the last episode of ransomware took us almost a day to recover. We have a dental application for our healthcare clinics, and you know, dental images, X-rays are stored as JPEGs. Well, unfortunately, ransomware that's one of their targets. So we basically had an entire day, 6 hours plus, of restoring a couple terabytes by the time we were done, and you basically turn away customers. And so you're not providing the services that you want to provide for the communities. We're community-based health centers. So it was extremely important for us. We did after that meeting, we did a point of concept and a proof of concept. They came down. Zerto, we got it up and running on one of the servers that got hit that day or the week before. That was on a Thursday night or a Friday, and I went on vacation on Saturday. On Monday morning, we got another virus hit at 8 a.m., another ransomware again, they were back up and running in 20 minutes. So, I mean, for me, and we weren't even a customer at that point, we were still a prospective customer. And I tell the story, it's true. It took me longer to connect up with VPN from where I was remotely than it did to bring the server back to production. So
On
For
the
me, it
beach,
was
right?
reactive. What's that?
On the beach,
I
right?
was, actually. I was camping on the beach with hardly any service, but I was enough to get a VPN connection in and do what I need to do. So it was great.
Todd?
Well, in 2012, we moved into a new data center, state-of-the-art, 2 backup generators, great fire suppression, HVAC, top-tier stuff. Well, the engineering wasn't quite sound, and at the time, we were supporting a legacy EMR system, a dental system, and a RX system, and a behavioral health system, all ran out of this new data center. We had just gotten everything over to the new data center. We were in there for about 2 weeks. The vendor, the manufacturer that installed the fire suppression system, pardon me, the wiring wasn't correct. To make a long story short, they came in there to test the smoke alarms within the data center. And I remember asking, are you sure you have everything bypassed? You're not going to cut power or discharge the fire suppressant? And, oh yeah, everything's taken care of. Well, they tested the smoke detectors, everything dropped, everything got quiet. So all the power from the UCSs, no power from the UCSs, generators were getting to the SANs, to our compute platform. We dropped the data center. SANs dropped, blades dropped, core routers dropped. Then they thought they would try to bring it up. So they brought it up, and then they bounced it down again. And they brought it up again, they bounced it down again. And this is an entire, AV power, 3-phase system. So we got our virtual machines back up, barely got the SANs back up. There was some damage to the core. There were some fried cards in the core routers. I won't bore you with all the technical details. Suffice to say, we had a lot of corruption in one of our SQL databases for the EMR, and I spent 24 hours with the DBAs rebuilding that server. So we were
That
down.
must have been fun.
Yeah. So we were down for 24 hours. All the clinics had to go to paper, which is pretty chaotic usually. And there was a lot of lost revenue. So reactionary buy. We found Zerto at a VMware conference, and knock on wood, luckily, we have not had to do we've not had any big disasters, knock on wood, with Zerto. I will say, though, that it's funny, a few weeks ago, our storefront servers got taken out by a Microsoft update. We lost all our Citrix storefront servers. We're an Epic customer. We run Epic on-prem. And luckily for Zerto, we just failed over. We stretched our layer 2. We failed over to the DR site, and everything was back up. I mean, within minutes, really. So
Excellent.
pretty good.
So I think it's particularly interesting that in both a physical security issue and a cybersecurity issue, that Zerto was able to help in both those situations. So in my mind, I had thought that, quickly think like my mind went straight to the cybersecurity, but hearing your story now, I understand that there's many more reasons to sort of have
Yeah,
that kind of
absolutely.
backup. Both of you had a reactionary, which is common for health systems and providers to think about reacting to bad technology situations and bringing solutions on. What would you say for any prospective customers in the crowd in terms of sort of, the constraints around budgets and the priorities of what kind of new technologies the IT department wants to bring on? What suggestions would you give to them for how to think about disaster recovery and how important it is in the grand scheme of things?
I mean, I think it all comes down to how much you can afford to be out of business. And if you're a retail customer, you can't afford to be out of business. If you're a healthcare customer, it's the same thing. you have to decide early on what is your recovery time objective. And, for me, now within its minutes in my most critical systems, that's great. And it comes back easily. Budgets are very difficult, especially in the not-for-profit sector. We are I can't say it, federally qualified health center, thank you, FQHC. So, we get grants from the government. We're tied in closely with Boston Medical Center, so they're our main technology partner. And we also are an Epic shop, but we don't host it on-prem. We actually have it hosted with a company out of Oregon called Ochin. For us, the deciding factor was, how much could we afford not to spend if we were down? And, Zerto fit the bill. It's really fairly, to me, very affordable for what it provides. So for us, it was, it was just, we had to do it. The only thing that, if you're planning a real true DR, double or triple actually at least triple your disk space requirements. Because if you have 10 terabytes in production, you're going to need 10 terabytes in DR. And a lot of people think they can get by with less, but I mean, that's the biggest planning thing for us, is to make sure we budget appropriate for that.
Great. Todd?
For us, it was not only to mitigate, security issues and, natural disasters and man-made disasters, but, for us, a lot of times we are our worst enemy when we're patching or we do something wrong. We're humans, and humans make mistakes, and inevitably you're going to bring down your own system. It could be a bad script, it could be a bad update, and Zerto will help mitigate those risks. Our organization policy, our RPO policy is 5 minutes. We get roughly between 11 and 15 seconds RPO to our DR site, which is pretty spectacular for us. When we were looking at a BCDR system, we were looking for something that was easy to use, that did not cost a lot of money, that was SAN agnostic. We are an EMC shop. We used a product called MirrorView, and we did log shipping previous to that. It just didn't cut it. Zerto's BCDR is very inclusive, and not only do you have your replication, but one important thing that we found with Zerto is you can use it as a tool to move, especially between vCenters. It's very, very easy to shift your VMs around from your DR site and vice versa, into the cloud, vice versa. So we found it a very, very valuable tool for that. And we're also starting to explore Zerto for off-site backups at the DR site. As far as advice, look at your storage, have multiple tiers, have a lot of storage at your DR site. You want some high range, mid range, and slow moving stuff for your really cold data. But you really have to test, and you really have to do a really good failover and commit to really flush out any issues, because it seems like every time we do a full interruption test, like with Epic, we find issues. You have to test, and you have to do, we usually do a failover and a failback with data, and that way you can really flush out problems beforehand. Maybe you have a network issue, or you have a set of slow drives, or overburdened storage processor or blade, but you need to test pretty regularly. With those full interruption tests, I would do the Zerto kind of automated tests in between, and that'll put you in a lot better position when you really do have to fail over for real, so.
Great.
Yeah.
So one of the things I consistently hear from health systems is even when they come across a great technology that they know they need, so maybe you could have found Zerto before any of these things happened, and you wanted to get it approved through your system, but it's just difficult to do. So tell us about what the approval process was once you knew that you wanted to bring Zerto on, and whether sort of it was easier to highlight certain things about Zerto that helped you kind of guide through the approval process.
Well, for us, it was sort of a no-brainer because the normal approval process for us is we find a technology that benefits the business, and the business, it needs to help the business move forward, and typically you have a buy-in from the CIO. He presents to, in this case, we present to 2 CEOs and 2 CFOs and 2 boards. So it's sort of difficult on my end because it's ×2 for everything. But when you looked at the amount of money that it would cost to get complete a complete DR solution versus turning customers away and turning patients away that day, the boards both decided it was well worth the investment. I can't even tell you what it cost us to be down for 6 hours without taking x-rays, canceling all the patients for that day, having them, get upset. Do we lose that patient? Do they go across the street to the other dental, provider that's across the street? So,
And that's what quality measures, not just your revenue, but
Correct.
Indirectly your revenue comes in, right?
Absolutely, because you tarnish a customer once, the word spreads, and it moves forward. So, it wasn't a long process for us actually. After the point of concept actually became reality, it was within a week or 2 weeks that we pushed it through and we got approval. So
Great.
for us, it's and typically it's a long process. It's 2 to 3 or 4 months. Really, you start planning this now for what we're going to implement in December.
Yeah.
And but again, in this situation, it was a no-brainer.
So did you have to put together a case study to say, okay, this is how much Zerto costs, and this is how much we lost with 6 days of revenue?
The CFO did that work because that's what they're supposed to do. I mean, and the CIO together. But yeah, we basically did. I mean, we looked at the cost of protecting the most critical VMs. I mean, we only have a 25 VM license right now. Can expand it anytime we need it. But we, out of our critical VMs, probably a dozen of them are the ones that we really have to make sure don't fail. Mm-hmm. So we still have some room on our license. But yeah, definitely it was, looking at the cost, we always like to do things in threes. So we did a 3-year maintenance plan so we don't have to look at it for 3 more years. And, and as we bring more on, more VMs on, we'll just add to our license.
Great. Todd, what was your process like?
Well, our budget takes 6 years. When we find a new technology we want to adopt, it's usually 6 months. 6 months to a year.
And 6 years would be long even
I know,
for
yeah.
healthcare.
Yeah. I'm sorry. To get that approved, after we had a data center failure, I think we had Zerto approved within 1 month. During that time, we did a POC. The one thing about Zerto, it makes it really easy. It's very, very easy to deploy. I think we had the DR and DC set up in, I would say, roughly about 2 hours. Yep. It was very, very easy to deploy. 2 servers and the VRAs. You give them the appropriate settings, and they'll install into each host. We're a VMware customer. And I think with the POC and letting our CFO look at how easy it is to, go through 5 or 6 clicks to fail something over is what sold the product. Just really its ease of use, and it's SAN agnostic. You don't need anything really. You can run it in Hyper-V or ESXi, and it's all hypervisor, one pane of glass. You don't have to go to you don't have to go tweak things in different control panels, and it's right there. You know, we still use the VMware thick client, and it's just a couple of tabs over. It's right there at a status. You have a dashboard. You can tell at a glance, you know, it's got a typical stoplight type setup on the dashboard. Very easy. I think it was the ease of deployment and the ease of failing over and failing back that really sold the product for us. So.
Great. That's probably a good segue then into talking a little bit more, you know, I think implementation, integration, that's also a big concern for health systems and players in the healthcare system. Maybe talk a little bit more about how it was to train people on the system, how it is to manage and to integrate. You talked a little bit about that, Todd, so maybe, Tom, you can expand on that.
Yeah, when we first had Zerto come in, Justin Nordeast, who a lot of people may know or have heard about, he was our systems engineer that came in with Zerto. And you know, literally, we met at 2 o'clock and we went for a beer at 5, and everything was up and running. I mean, it was that simple.
Wow.
If anybody has ever in this room used SRM, Site Recovery Manager, from VMware, yeah, it's not a 3-hour implementation. And then try to use it to actually fail over. You know, there's network planning, there's subnet planning, there's so much to do. You know, compared to SRM, there's no comparison. So, you know, the implementation was very straightforward. Adding a new VM, the easiest. It's point and click, just like Todd, said. It's point and click. I want to take this VM, I want to replicate it there. Done. And it starts building the journal files, and then after the syncing comes up and running, everything is up to speed. And I mean, it's as simple as, you know, looking on my iPhone, I have an actual Zerto mobile app. And if I can see it right now, my VPGs are 11 second RPO right now. So, I mean, that's the coolest thing. I think that the best thing, I'm going to be talking to the product review board here pretty soon, but if I could then go, hey, let's do a failover for my mobile phone, that's even better, right? Because now I don't need to connect with VPN and I don't need to do any of that. But, I mean, the technology is there, they have it there. You know, knowing that my VPGs right now have 11-second RPOs, you know, makes me happier. And, you know, the training when you're teaching your staff, it's really not, it's like Todd said, it's a single pane of glass. It's green, or it's yellow, or it's red. If it's red, well, you're in trouble. But typically you don't have too many reds, or I haven't yet anyway.
Great. Do you have any other comments, Todd, on training or anything?
No, you know, I would say training. I trained our Avamar data domain person
Avamar.
a couple weeks ago. I think I had 2 training sessions with her, total maybe of 2 hours on Zerto. Basic failover, fail back. You know, Zerto, you know, once you're journaling and your stuff's over there, we keep about 24 hours worth of recovery points at the DR site. And did you get that?
Don't worry,
Timer.
it's just telling us where we are in the time.
So, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
You're talking about training.
Yeah. So the great thing about Zerto, another good thing that we've found, and I was showing her how to do, is to recover file level. With Zerto, it's very, very easy, especially if you're using the backup feature to go in there and pluck out files. And it's usually a lot faster. If it's within that 24-hour window, it's usually a lot faster than trying to, you know, reconstitute and dethaw your data from Data Domain and Avamar. But we've been finding, you know, many uses for it, and it's just an easy UI for anybody to catch on. It's well laid out. It's simple, point and click. But if you really want to get in depth and get fancy, you can use the REST APIs, which are magnificent. And any of you that do any type of PowerShell REST scripting, it's actually very powerful. And even we can do a lot of automation type stuff with their APIs. So.
That's great, because, I mean, I think the training part is really important, right, for that there's an ease of use, because from what I've seen, the resources are not that great, maybe even from a budget standpoint, but also, I mean, it's a health system. What you do all day, every day is take care of patients, not build out the health team, the IT team with lots of talented engineers. So definitely it seems like Zerto's usability is a plus. All right, so I'll ask you one last question, and then we'll open it up to the floor. What has been, I guess, your favorite thing, or what helps you sleep better at night from having Zerto, and or when you go up for that 3-year review, what will you put back in front of the board and say here are those sort of results of the difference or the impact that Zerto had on our system?
Well, I would say that, the organization wants to see proof. And if you've done a full interruption test with Zerto, there's your proof. And I sleep good at night knowing that it actually works. When you tell Zerto to fail over, it fails over. And we've not had a problem with fail over, fail back with Zerto. It works. It's one of the few companies that, they tout their product. We have sub-minute RPOs. I'm like, yeah, right. But it performs.
Excellent.
To the specifications. You come into this with thinking there was a lot of hype, but it's very well justified. And as you fail over and fail back, and your organization sees that, and you're like, wow, you got everything. You got this whole Epic environment up in under an hour. I mean, so yeah, proof.
Great.
Actually doing the failover.
Excellent.
I mean, I think there's so many other things that we worry about that keeps me up at night, but one of the things about DR is, in our case, it wasn't just, it works and now we can quickly recover from another virus attack. It was, how do we block those virus attacks? So, we did a lot of work around that as well, and there's a panel tomorrow that will discuss that security. I'm on that as well. But, it was getting in, and we had to stop it. And we hope, knock on plastic here, we hope that we did stop it. We got by this last huge nationwide or worldwide attack. It didn't come in. And, I think that was a lot of planning on our part. But knowing that if, something should happen, whether it's a complete site down or another type of attack of some sort, that I can quickly fill it over. I mean, one of the things that came up on my phone just a minute ago was yellow, and I'm like, oh my God, what's yellow? Well, it's warning me that I haven't tested my failover in 6 months. So you can set a failover test date, and if you haven't done a failover test, you'll get an email and you'll get a notification that you need to test your failover. And if anybody's done failover testing in the past in different ways, it's been very, very complicated. It's a nightmare. This is click, it comes up. Okay, can you see it? Yep. Does it look good? Yep. All your data's there. Okay, there's my tests. And you can, if you needed to go live, you can do it live and then have everybody reconnect. I mean, that's the real ultimate test. Or you can just say, okay, I'm done, and the failover is complete. So.
Great.
I would like to add something if
Yeah.
I could. DR tests usually are like a white knuckle experience. You don't know if your stuff's going to make it over the DR. If you do a full interruption, you don't know if it's going to make it back intact. And the product, the Zerto product, has put me at ease. It's like I don't mind failing over and failing back with data anymore. Whereas before, we had to run complicated scripts and mirror view and hoping the disks come up and there's no corruption. And used to be a terrible, kind of terrifying experience to do a failover test, but it's actually quite, I'm not going to say it's joyful, but it's like, yeah, I'm a little more confident now in failing over, so.
Yeah, it's great. Sounds like it's Zerto has done wonders for both of your own mental health as
Oh,
well as your
absolutely.
healthcare system.
Yeah.
So that's great. So we have two mics in the middle there. And one that might walk around. We'd love to hear your questions.
So we're a fairly new Zerto customer, and we're testing some of the failover features. But can you talk at all about how you're handling the network layer of it? Failing over the VMs is one thing, but in order to get them to talk on the network, are you building your own test network to fail over into? One of you, I think Todd mentioned, you've got the layer 2 stretch between the sites. So I'm just curious if you can talk a little bit more about how you had the network layer built.
Right. We use an older product from Cisco called OTV. Not to get too technical, we have 2 ASR routers to handle that. And, you know, on the network side, that's been amazing because we used to have to re-IP everything, which is easy in Zerto now, and it deals with DNS. So we stretch our layer 2 out. I think we pull over 5 or 6 VLANs over there, so it makes it really easy. So I kind of get to cheat. I don't have to, do any DNS scripting and re-IPing. With that, we also, a lot of our stuff's behind an F5, and so we have a F5 over there that's clustered as well for failover. But the stretch layer 2 makes everything just like super, super easy. Not that you can do it the other way, because Zerto will go in there and re-IP everything for you. Our test network, it's just, right now, it's just a VLAN. It doesn't go anywhere. There's no gateway. It's pretty captive. You can only get to it, via a VMware console.
Thank you.
There's no questions? Come on.
Somebody's got to have a question. Here we go.
I'm also a prospective customer. We're faced not in a reactive situation, but we're looking at Zerto. I'm a DR architect, looking at it from the same perspective you did. But also, I have to worry about our cloud strategy, because right now that's facing us. You heard about it in the keynote. Is Zerto part of any of your plans to move to the cloud? We're healthcare. We have a lot of security concerns with the cloud. I'm just wondering what your situation was.
So we don't have anything right now in the cloud. We have our own private cloud. I've got 2 small data centers at each of my 2 buildings, and then a third at a colo facility. And the colo is where we put most of our critical systems exchange. Some of our SQL stuff is up there, but also our sort of DR. Are we ever going to go to the cloud? I really can't say. I know healthcare and cloud don't mix, or it hasn't in the past, and a lot of people can second that in this room. But I think it will eventually get there. For us, I think it will probably get there in the form of more of a backup depository at some point in time with one of the Zerto partners, as we've been talking in the last couple of days. I'm just not certain how we can get there. I know my CIO is really not in favor of it right now, but I think as it progresses, Zerto will definitely help us get there, at least with the the backup initially, the backup strategy, that 4th repository, if you will. So yeah, for us, it's something that's there, but just not on our immediate horizon.
Any other questions?
One in the back.
Are any of your applications requiring multiple VMs to be in a single VPG? As in, are they all forced and hooked together so when you do your test, it's not simply boot the machine up, yes, I can log in, shut it down, but actually access and use the data for any time?
One of my VPGs is actually 2 servers that it's pretty difficult to manage, but they're both DFS servers. So it's my main file shares. So they replicate each other with DFS, and I use both of them in, both servers into one group. That's the one that actually is wanting me to test, because I don't want to, haven't had the time to actually do it right. But that environment, when it does fill over, one of my testing will make sure that the DFS replication is exactly where it needs to be as well. So, I mean, I think that's probably my most critical application, is the DFS file sharing, as far as using Zerto to fill it over. So once it's filled over, we can go in and test to make sure DFS is up and replication is 100%. And then I can even get users on it in the test network if I need to, which is the right way to do it. And then bring it back down and then make sure that it's going to continuing moving forward to sync. So, there probably are more critical applications than that, but that's my hardest application at this point.
Todd, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I would say our ERP, we are a user of Epicor for ERP, and it's kind of a beast, a lot of moving parts, and it uses DFS as well. And the nice thing I like about having them in a VPG is we can set our boot orders, for the app servers and the database servers. It makes it easier to bring those up in a very organized manner at the DR site.
Great.
Hi, I'm Craig Owens. I work for CareFirst Blue Cross Blue Shield. I've been there for about 32 years, so I haven't seen a lot of other companies and how they implement DR, or for that matter, IT. I'd like to expand on the question about moving to the cloud. Assuming everyone in this room is in the healthcare business, I'd like to see a show of hands how many of you are in the public cloud, because like one of the panelists said up there, we're very slow to move to the public cloud because of HIPAA and all the other PHI and very sensitive data. So if I could get a show of hands from everybody that's in the public cloud.
So nobody here is in the
Whoa,
public.
surprise,
cloud.
surprise.
Oh, we got a half over there.
Wow, that's what I expected, actually. Thank
Yeah.
you, everybody.
I mean, I think if you look in the retail business and ask the same question, it would be all hands up. So, yeah, it's big for us. It is. I mean, HIPAA, CMR, you have all these other, and breaches happen. They happen all the time. And it happens from an easy standpoint, it happens from a difficult standpoint. Spoofing, phishing, whaling, whatever you want to call it, the breach is going to happen. People are going to get in, data's going to go out. The issue is how quick can you manage it and control it. And for us, it's just it's not there yet from a cloud standpoint. It's coming, and I totally understand where Zerto's going with that. I see it happening at some point. Just don't know when.
I'll also add to that, if I may. We don't have any experience in the public cloud yet. However, we're moving our Epic environment off-prem. It will be hosted by Epic, mainly to reduce our infrastructure. Not only that, the current administration, healthcare, we're not sure what's going to happen. So we're going to have Epic host that. And we're also looking at maybe placing DR into the cloud as well. We're not sure yet. One of the biggest problems we have with public cloud is trying to ascertain the costs of, what is it going to cost to run your DR and or test and dev for that matter. It's very complex trying to get costs down. We had to actually hire several consultants, to give us a number. So now we're working towards the public cloud, but we're not quite there yet.
Great. Did I see one more question over here?
Hi. I was wondering if either of you are replicating any part of your applications outside of Zerto, SQL, log shipping, SAN replication, or anything. And if so, how you're maintaining consistency within that application across those multiple replications.
The only application I do any replication in right now is Exchange, using continuous replication cluster. Exchange is actually not one of my VMs that I'm backing up with Zerto right now. mostly because there was no space to do it at that time. But CCR gives us the ability to, quickly fail mail over if I need it. So for us, that's not a large issue as far as that's concerned, but I don't have any other application level replication. We have Veeam, and Veeam's doing its daily, nightly thing, and I'm doing Veeam copies as well, so all of my 3 sites sort of co-copy each other across. But from an application level, I'm not doing any other replication at all.
What about with Epic, when you're replicating Epic? Is that all through Zerto?
It's not. Epic, they don't quite mandate, but they say, here's how this is how we protect our cache database. You're going to use our mirror technology. And we pretty much follow their guidance when it comes to the crown jewels, the cache system, right? That's where all your data's at. So it's tried and true, it's proven, so that's kind of a one-off we do not use Zerto for. I'm sure we could, but we've followed Epic's advice to use the InterSystems mirroring system, and so we have a kind of a hot standby at the DR site that's taking in those logs, and I think it's under 5 minutes of RPO. I don't remember the exact figures. We also have some physical boxes like AIX for our dental system. We're using a more archaic mirror view method and a bunch of scripts to handle that outside of Zerto. Not really fun. It's very difficult to fail over, but it's one of those kind of outlier things that you have to deal with in DR, those kind of one-off physical servers.
Thanks.
Great. I think that's all the time that we have for today, but for any of you who are prospective customers in the crowd, I think both Todd and Tom are really excited about Zerto and would be happy to talk to you about their experiences. So find them later and ask them about your thoughts and concerns. Thank you very much.
Thanks.